The risk is that we don't want to give players either, the ability or frankly the burden to feel like, oh, well, rogue damage isn't so good right now. I'm going to go do the quest and switch my rogue to a hunter or something like that. I mean, leveling is pretty easy these days, particularly for super advanced players like you guys who can go find the heirlooms and things like that. So it's not that hard to get as many high-level characters as you really need.
It was more about that, I've played it for so long and I have so many achievements to go and re-roll a new one would be kind of a pain in the butt. But I understand what you guys are saying.
I totally get you on the achievements, and we would love, and I hope someday we're able to do this technically, is to be able to give you achievements that you earn on one character to either apply to every character or at least be able to see the other achievements, because we understand that gets in the way of alts.
Thank you. One more question is for my guild leader and my brother. Currently, I believe Druid healing at 85. They're running out of mana real fast, and for my brother, Paladin healing at the later levels is not as potent, but they have seem to have a lot of mana at the time at 85.
We've tweaked both of those a lot lately. I think the Holy Paladin single target healing is pretty potent now at 85.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I guess I have to make a new question again. Both of them have been answered, but this one's for rogues. I guess it's about Banner's Guile. What's your guys' intent with that? It seems to be maybe like you do one finishing move on one and do another later, but right now it kind of looks like damage is low on, like, say, a Rupture, so you only really eviscerate still. And it also seemed to kind of take away from the target swapping that combat had by actually giving it some kind of real lead up. So what's the intent there?
The intent is for it to be when you're on a single target for a prolonged period of time, it's cyclical damage that rises, reaches its peak, stays at that peak for a while, and then resets. Encouraging and rewarding players for using their most powerful damaging abilities and other timers, cooldowns, trinkets, etc. when it's at its peak, and maybe holding off on them when it's the other end. In terms of target switching or multi-target situations, I think that with the change to Blade Flurry, combat is actually in a pretty strong place against multiple targets, and things like the new rogue ability Redirect also help when you need to switch from one target to another quickly.
All right, thanks. And also Ghostcrawler's Thunder Against Cenarius wants to let you know there's an open-ended invitation if you want to chill with us.
Right after this.
I thought you were meeting somebody after this.
I'm a busy man.
Hey, so at the Cataclysm panels you had last year, you talked about racials. So they're a train wreck right now. I mean, we had people in our guild that were undead mages, and when you allowed re-speccing, or re-whatevering racing, haste versus underwater breathing. That's across the board between all the racials. Are you ever going to get to the point where we have a consistent activated DPS ability, a passive that's useful for each, and whatever else? Right now they're all over the board.
So, to be honest, probably not. So, the reason that I say that is because if you take that troll mage that has the activated haste into the arena, right? Now suddenly you get feared and you're just sort of stuck there going, oh man, I wish I was undead again. And different races have those different abilities. Like, yes, some are going to be better in PvE, some are going to be better in PvP, but in every place in the game, they have some fights where they're going to shine. So, no, they're not going to be the same.
At the same time, we do try to be mindful of keeping the relative power balance within a certain range. For example, the original announced Worgen racial was plus 1% to all damage. That was a quite powerful passive compared to things that some of the other races got. We changed that to bring it a bit more in line, because we also don't want to create the sense that if you aren't this race, you're doing it wrong. There are situations where certain racials are going to shine, and other situations where they won't be as helpful, but it's all part of the flavor of being that race.
Also, I wanted to say thanks for the new tree druid form. That's actually pretty fun. It's cool.
makes.
Hey guys, I just want to first start off saying that I can't wait for Cataclysm to come out, man. It looks really awesome, and I can't wait to look at all the new places that's going to be there. But my question is, I play Horde, and I was wondering, can we give the Alliance goblins and worgans, and we get murlocs?
Murlocs are special to all of us. You couldn't really give them the Horde or the Alliance. Just Murlocs are special.
Thanks.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm ThreatCon off Gorfiend, guild leader of Tempest Everlasting. Again, Close Crawler, thank you for nerfing Paladins over and over and over again. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Hey, we buffed them in the beta last week.
They're fine.
It's roughly two questions that I have for you. The Holy Power generation for Prot Paladins right now is slightly gimped for generation of threat overall. Do you have any intention of like giving Judgment a guaranteed Holy Power charge, or giving us a chance on proc in the Prot tree to give us more Holy Power generation? Because red spec right now, which is my main spec, you have more things that generate random Holy Power charges, or you have the Mastery that gives you free Holy Power, so you're always constantly doing an active spell or activating a stronger ability. Do you have any clue or ideas as to fixing this problem for threat generation for Prot Paladins?
So one big trap that we want to avoid in the Prot Paladin is the idea you can try to keep Inquisition up and Holy Shield up at the same time. You can try to keep both of your finishers that buff you at the same time and then feel like that's what you have to play as. So if we give you too much Holy Power, it's actually going to make it harder to play the Paladin because you have to play perfectly, and the guy who's not as good at it is going to be really terrible by comparison. Along the other lines, some of the reason why people think the Holy Paladin's threat is bad right now is because actually the Warrior was generating too much threat, and we fixed that last week. So your threat should be very comparable to Warrior. We've been doing a lot of tests on that to make sure they're comparable.
I think at the same time, we recognize that when playing a tank spec in particular, it can be very frustrating to feel like you're lacking the resources that you need to do your job. When something comes in, you need to react to it to pick it up, and the resource isn't there or the button isn't there to push, you feel like you're hamstrung in that. To that end, one of the things that we did with the initial pass on Prot Paladins was to give them a 3-second Crusader Strike so that their overall Holy Power generation does exceed Rets in most cases. Another very recent change that we've made is to add a talent to allow Divine Plea to give you up to 3 Holy Power when you push it, so that you can have the equivalent of a Prot Warrior who Blood Rages before a pull so they can go in and get everything to stick to them right away,
Actually,
or just have
not
that emergency
Blood Rage.
button.
That's your Blood Rage is gone, sorry.
Yes.
But you get Battle Shot now.
Yeah, but you can Divine Plea on a pull now and start with 3 Holy Power if you're a Prot Paladin.
All right. Okay, then that extends into two more questions for you. Consecration. It was basically a 12-second cooldown originally, and it fit well into a DPS rotation for Red Paladins, or it could be a nice starter and then continuation at AoE threat generation for a Prot Paladin. What was your intention on taking that to a 1-minute cooldown?
Why don't we do one more question, because there's a lot of the people behind you. But basically, we wanted Consecration to be more situational, where when you have the legendary streaming ads coming in, that's when you want to drop Consecration to try to trap them. When you have a large group you're trying to control, once it has a very short cooldown and you can more or less use it when you want, then there's not much decision making. It's the decision is Consecrate expired? Okay, I'm going to cast it again and cast it again. We want it to be more like, is now a good time to cast it, or am I going to need it again in a few seconds from now? But at the same time, we won't balance the threat generation around having it up all the time.
We also made a conscious decision in the case of Ret to try to reduce the amount of constant AoE damage coming out of their single target rotation. So that was one of the reasons for increasing the cooldown of Consecration.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hi. I also have a question about Ret Paladin, specifically the Zealotry talent. On paper it sounds good, but in practice I feel like it kind of clashes with both our Mastery as well as the Divine Purpose talent. Because if we pop Zealotry and we get Hand of Light procs, it's effectively reducing, how many Crusader Strikes we can generate, as well as while Zealotry is active, any Holy Power we get from Divine Purpose is kind of wasted. So do you think that currently that design is kind of clashing, and is there any intent to reevaluate, Zealotry as a talent?
We're still looking at it. There are some problems there, like you've mentioned. Some people try to claim Zealotry isn't a DPS increase at all. We're a little confused by that. But one change we made recently is you can activate Zealotry with 3 holy powers required, but it doesn't burn the 3 holy powers, so you start immediately with being able to use those 3 holy powers. You have to wait to build up again before you can use it. But,
it's also off the GCD now.
Right. So, but if it's not feeling like it's good enough or doesn't quite work right, we'll certainly make more polished changes. Like one simple change might be, say, Divine Purpose procs generate 3 holy power while it's active, right? If we needed to make some additional change to make it better.
I also wouldn't necessarily say that they clash with each other. As long as Zealotry is still a good button to push, and talents like Divine Purpose or stats like Mastery are desirable on their own, the fact that, when one is up, the value of the others is lessened isn't necessarily problematic. It's no different than, say, a combat rogue who has talents and things that increase energy generation, and also an activated ability, Adrenaline Rush, that gives them massive amounts of energy. When one is in effect, the other is less valuable, but they're both very, very good in their own right.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? I'd like to start by saying that I've been playing a druid since day one, and I love it. I play all 4. I actively switch between all 4 roles that it plays, so I've seen all different walks of life. I've played Resto when Innervate was the final talent. So my question here is, there's pretty much 2 groups of druids on the forums right now. There's those that are complaining about the tree change. I'm not going to ask you about that because obviously you can't please everyone, and you're just trying to change the mechanic. That's fine. So my question is the second group, those that were curious about the change to nom nom nom.
So it's the first. We actually just made a new minor glyph that'll let you have the old tree form back. So if you really want to look like old grandma tree, you can do that. I personally love nom 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 too, but these guys all told me we had to change it. So
why the change though? Like, understand, like something with tree form, that's a change in mechanics. So there could be reasons for it, there could be reasons not. But nom 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 doesn't hurt anybody. Blood in the water makes sense. I can understand it, but why the change?
It's an internet trope that a year from now will be less funny, and 3 years from now will embarrass us. So it was going to get dated in a hurry. So
it just wasn't consistent with all of our other talents. We don't really name them after pop culture kind of things usually. So that was just mainly the reason why we changed it. It's kind of like a temporary thing we usually do when we're in alpha developer stage. We just name things silly things just because we haven't thought up the name for it yet. So that's why it was named that.
Blood in the Water is a good name too.
Nom 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 is better.
Shark Attack.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I was gonna say, in regards to in-game raids, end-game raids at the end of Cataclysm, I'm not going to say anything because whether you're DPS, tank, healer, it doesn't matter on what your class can do. It just comes down to whether you're skillful at your class. But my main question was for Death Knights. I mean, I've experienced a lot of prejudice as a tank. People automatically just kick me off the raid or even instance. I was wondering if you're going to make them more viable to end-game raids for Cataclysm because, I mean, like, just out of curiosity.
I don't know, my guild used a Death Knight tank. They kind of have a bad rep because we let you start at level 55. So people who don't know what they're doing can get there in a hurry, and so you're kind of competing with that. But there's a lot of really good Death Knights. There's an awesome one in my raid group that's fantastic. So it varies a lot.
And
You just got to get good rep.
And consolidating the primary tanking talents into a single tree for Cataclysm allows us to ensure that that particular type of Death Knight has a very diverse skill set and the tools that I think are going to be very successful in high-end raiding. I think the self-healing mechanic through Death Strike and the Mastery Absorb Shield and their various cooldowns should make them very well suited to be a main tank for any raid.
Hi, how's it going? My question was about feedback loop mechanics. The old Warrior Race Generation, Sword Spec, Wind Fury, those all tend to be nerfed and removed as the game